Hang on 1 second. We are recording now. The slope is the change in the graph line. Specifically, the change in y, which is how high up the line moves or how far down it moves, divided by the change in x, which is the run. We go from left to right, although you can go from right to left as long as you use the negative. It's to not deal with negatives and just go from left to right, and then you'll have to deal with one negative if you go down instead of up. And then last but not least is the slope-intercept form for an equation, and that's the way of writing an equation so that the slope and intercept are easily found. And we're going to see that first right here in number 1. I haven't clicked share my screen yet. Let's make that there. So clearly, if you can. Oh. So this one here says we're going to start with graphing a line given its equation in slope-intercept form and fractional slope. Technically, all slopes are fractions, but when you have something over 1, you can just cancel out the 1. And the y-intercept form is specifically y. Whoop. That happened to me last time too. I'll try that again. Y times x plus, and above up here, we can see that we have our applied times x. That's right. This side here is not being multiplied times anything. Our slope and our b, our y-intercept. So like y-intercept is the point where, I'm going to graph in green, the y-intercept is the point where a graph line crosses this y-axis. If you're on the y-axis right here, that means that you haven't moved left or right in x at all. So x is equal to 0, and then y is going to be some point along here. Take a look. Our y-intercept is this plus 3 that we have over here. So I'm going to start at 0, 0. We count 1, 2, 3. Bring a little dot right there. And then slope. And like I said, slope is rise over run. Let me do this in red. Run. As I mentioned, we like to keep our run positive because that makes it easier. We just move to the right every time. So it means that if we have a negative slope, we're going to attach that negative to our rise. And we have a negative slope since we have negative 1 over 3. We're going to attach that negative to the 1 up top. And instead of going up 1, we're going to go down 2. So this point that I made at the y-intercept, I'm going to count down 1 for that negative 1. Now my denominator is positive, and I'm going to use that positive 3 and count 1 to make my point. We can automatically just graph our line. Goes right 2 points. All right, anybody have any questions? All right, so let's go ahead and pull up the first practice problem, and you guys can do something very much like this. Right here. We're going to be graphing a line. We're given the equation y equals negative 1/2 x plus 5. You're going to find your y-intercept, and then find your slope, and plot your 2 points, and draw a line. I'll give you a few seconds to, well, I'll give you seconds. I'll give you a couple of minutes here to try it for yourself. I'll put it on the screen for a few more seconds while you guys write it down and jot it down on paper, and then I'll put it when I get back so that you can have something to work from. Any questions? So did I get something worked out for that one? Let's go give it a shot. Does anybody need more time? Okay, so let's go ahead and graph this line here. Our slope here, got that here. Y-intercept, and we're going to say we have a y-intercept of +5, so we're going to start on here. 2, 3, 4, 5. That slope, again, we have a negative slope. So we're going to tap that negative to the top and count down 1. And then with positive denominator, we're going to count right 1, 2. And but I can do a little better. Keep in mind, these lines that I'm drawing, they do keep going on forever in both directions. They don't actually end at this point. They keep going up way forever and down this way forever. But I'm just going to draw short little lines. Any questions? All right, so keep them up to pace. So let's go ahead and move on to the second question. We have finding the x and y intercepts of a line and give an equation. It's kind of not backwards from what we're doing, but just a little bit different here. We're given an equation, and this one's not given to us in slope-intercept form like last one. This one's in form where we have both the x and y on one side and our constant on the other, but we want to get it back to that form where we have y. I swear, one of these days I'm going to remember it as soon as I click into the screen. Equals x. So ultimate goal is to get y by itself. Well, that's basic algebra that we've been learning for the last few weeks here. Y term, and we need to get it completely by itself. So to get the y term by itself, first we have to get this y term by itself. So we move the 5x over. So I'm going to here, if we have 5x minus, I just want to isolate this y term, so I'm going to move the 5x to the other side by subtracting it from both. Cancel this out, leave me at negative 7y on this side. I'm going to keep this x term first so that it looks like this mx plus b. A negative 5x y term by itself, so we need to get the y by itself. We're going to do that by dividing by negative 7, since it's being multiplied by negative 7. And if I divide this by negative 7, I have to divide everything by negative 7. So we have negative 7s, and that's with y equals divided by negative 7. The negatives are going to cancel out, and since that doesn't divide 2 clearly, I'm just going to leave that as 5 7ths. Oh, and positive divided by negative 7 is going to leave me with a negative number, a negative 12 over 7. This is y equals mx plus b form. Where, yeah, come on, show up. There we go. I take the number 5 times x, which is this 5 7ths. So my slope. Oh, wrong question. I apologize, people. We're looking for the y-intercept and the x-intercept, which means that we just did an awful lot of work, but we'll go and use that to our advantage. And that point real quick, where the 5 7ths is our slope and the negative 12 7ths is our y. So y-intercept already. y equal negative 12 over 7. Typically, the way that you actually answer these questions is you just make a little chart. And as I was saying before, I'm going to go on to graph. If you're on your y-intercept, that means that you haven't gone anywhere in x. So x has to be 0 to find your y-intercept. If you're on your x-intercept, that means you're on the point where your graph crosses this x-axis. And if you're in the x-axis, then you haven't gone up or down at all, so y has to equal 0. Yep. Yep. There we go. So what I would do is make a little chart over here and y. And y-intercept, x will equal 0. For my x-intercept, y will equal 0. Each one in. So if we have 5x minus 7y equals 12 and x equals 0, all of this part. Right over that. Y in red here. So if I begin x, I get 5. My equals 12. Of course, anything is going to be 0, so that just leaves me at negative 7y equals 12. And I'm going to divide negative 7 to get that y by itself. And then get to y equals 12 over 7, which is what we had already found, so that's no big surprise. And blue. There we go. And that means that y is going to be 0, so we have 5 times x times 0, since y is 0. 12, again, 0 times anything is still just 0. So we 5x equals 12. And divide. Intercept is going to be 12s. I think starting us off wrong there. I was looking for the wrong work prep sheet here. About that. Yes. All right, my questions about the problem that we just worked out. So I'm going to pull up the same demo here, or practice, if you guys have at it. Again, we're not going to do all that other work that I just did. We're just going to make that little X and Y chart and go to town and find out what X and Y intercepts. I'll give a minute or two to work this, and I'll check on One more time, finish working this out, or are we ready to continue today? We want some more time here, so let's go ahead and work through the explanation. Again, we have x is equal to 0. I'm going to do this in color code again, I think. So 5 times 0 plus 2y equals 6. Plus 2y equals negative 6. Divided by negative 2. And we'll find our y-intercept is going to be equal to 3. Again, y-intercept, we have 5x minus, x-intercept, I meant x-intercept. X minus 2 times 0 is equal to negative 6. Equals negative 6. Divide both sides by 5. Our x-intercept then is at negative 6. Else got? All right, good. That's demo number 3. Time we're given the graph and we're asked to find the slope. Ask us for it, we're given the y-intercept too, just for the fun of it. Hey, math is fun. It really. Line slope for line is to find 2 points that you can clearly see what their corner. If we take a look, this one right here is at this point where x is equal to 0 and y equals 1. So point 1, x is 0 and 1. And from my point 2, right down here where the line clearly comes right below this 4, right crossing this negative 2. So my here is 4, negative 2. Above here, slope is our change in y. Change in y, you're going to do some subtraction because you take your final point and the initial point. And that is 2, 1, is y, and x. So again, we're going to take our final value, subtract our initial value for x. The x2 minus slope, which we designate with an m. Y2 is going to be the y value from our point 2, negative, minus from our point 1 is 1. Our value from number 2, which is 4. Minus value from our first 0. Negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. And this is 4. Note that it doesn't really matter which point you call 1 and which point you call 2. You'll still get the same exact slope. What matters is that you keep things tied together. So if I decide to call this first point 2, then its y value is going to be y2 and its x value would be x. I'm talking about, I'm going to do this kind of the exact opposite. I'm going to say that point 1 is my point 2, which means that my y2 would be 1. Would be the 2. Negative 2. And at the bottom, I would calling point 1, point 2. My x2 is going to be 0. Minus 1, which is time. Negative 2 is positive 3. 0 minus 4 is negative 4, which is just a negative 3/4. It doesn't matter if the negatives on the top or bottom. Either way, you're still a negative fraction. It's more useful when you're plotting the slope. So, questions about that? All right, questions about the here? I'm going to bring up the practice problem. Crack at that. I'll give you a couple minutes and come back and check on you. Feel free to type into the chat box. All right, practice problem here. Or for me to go over it. I'm ready to go over it. Is there anybody that needs more time? Like it. So we'll go ahead and say that our one here is going to be this point. I'd like to start on the left for my point one. No matter where the line is going, I find 2 points. The whatever point is more to the left is the point that I start with. Here is going to be at equals -5 and y equals -2. Whoops. Why? Because again, that's why. Okay. So let's look up. And then over here, it equals -2 and y equals 2. So we have 2 and 2. And again, these equate y2 minus y1 over 1. 2 is going to be 2. going to be negative 2. And then 2 is also a negative 2. And this, my 1 is going to be a negative 5. Minus negative 2. That's the same thing as 2 plus 2. So that's minus 5. So 2 plus 5 is going to be so like 4 and right 3. And jump on to the next one then. Line given its slope and y-intercept. Well, that's almost too easy in a way after everything else we've just been doing. Yeah, we want, whenever you're given this kind of information, it's best to start with your y-intercept. That's basically, and life is just much easier that way. There's a color here. If we graph the line with a y-intercept of negative 1, well, that means on my y-axis, I'm going to start from 0 and come down 1. Whoop. Use brushes. So I've got y-intercept of negative 1. My slope is negative 3/5. Again, I'm going to attach that negative to my numerator. My rise is negative. And if my rise is negative, that means instead of going up, I'm going down. So I'm going to point I just drew and go down 1, 2, 3. And then if it's negative, that makes my denominator positive, and I'm going to count to the right 5 and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, so we can just drop a between them. Nice, quick, and easy, and painless, I think. Anybody? I'm going to go ahead and let you have a crack at it. I'm not going to give you that much time for this one, so it's a little bit quicker. Feel free to type a question in the chat if you have one. Need some more time? Doesn't look for y-intercept of negative 6. Whoops, as soon as I switch over to red, there we go. Y-intercept of negative 6 means I'm going to start from 0 and count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's enough lines for that. Huh? Of 3. It can be written as a fraction. So with the slope of 3, it's the same thing as saying 3 over 1. Rise of 3, so I'm going to start from the point that I drew and count up 1, 2, 3. I'm going to run 1. And I now we in between. And done. Any questions? Number 4. Let's move on to number 5. done. Slope and y-intercept of the line, giving its equation in the form ax plus by equals c. Find the y-intercept of the line, -6 plus 3y equals -9. You can generically by replacing numbers with letters, which is what they've done up in the top line where they have ax plus y equals c. So we've already defined the slope and y-intercept. It's a lot easier if we have it in the form of equation of y plus the slope and our y-intercept. So if we start out with this equation of a plus by equals c, and we solve it for y, we'll get it into this form. And then once we've done that, we can see that there's a develop that anytime you have the equation written in the standard form, where x and y are on the left and the numbers by itself on the right, we look pretty quick and see what our slope and y-intercept are. There are two different ways of solving this problem. First one, we're going to solve this generically. I'm going to get this y by itself, so I'm going to subtract x from both sides. Left with y, ax, c, sides by b, or I'm going to divide everything by b. Get left with y equals -a over b plus c over b. With x plus by equals c, if I look over here, my a is going to be this number that's being multiplied times x. My b is going to be this number being multiplied times y. C is going to be this number that's over here on the right completely by itself. So slope is the number being multiplied times x, which is -a over b. And say then that m is going to be equal to -6, so +6, b +3, or 3 is just going to be 2. And my y-intercept, c over b. So I'm going to take this -9, which is my c, which is 3, -3. That's one of the beautiful things of math, is you can solve them with generic numbers like that. But if that's a little too confusing to you, you can just solve it with the regular numbers. If we start off with this equal -6x plus equals -9, and I want to get this y term completely by itself, so I'm going to add 6x to both sides. To get y equals and by 3 completely by itself. So x divided by 3 is going to be 2x. Negative divided by 3 is -3. Again, my slope is the 2 that's being multiplied times x, same 2 that we got over here. It's going to be this -3 over here, which is the same -3 that we got over here. About that? Anybody have any problems? So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the practice problem. Again, I'll put the page back up after 20 seconds and give you some time to write it down and start working on it. Solve it with either method. Recognize that slope is going to be your -a over b and your y-intercept is going to be c over b. You can, or if you want to work it out like I did on the right, you can do that. Right place. More time. Recognize the fact this is just a negative A over B and a C over B situation, but we're going to work through the math because it's that hard, and what the heck, right? Right. So we have, what the heck, didn't I? Yeah. Negative 3x minus negative 2. Okay, and by itself, I'm going to add the x to both sides. Y equals 2. To say the y by itself, I need to get rid of this negative, so I'm going to divide by a negative 1. That'll have a negative over there, which means I need to divide everything by negative 1. So the y equals 3x, and negative divided by negative 1 gives us a positive 2. All right, good. Let's clear then. The equation of a line is given below. Find the slope and y-intercept, then use them to graph the line. I just use the negative part, but I'm going to throw it out here. So we have 3x, brushes, plus y equals 1. Subtract 3x from both sides. Equals 3x plus 40, because y is completely by itself. So we just, or it can be negative 3, and we write that as negative 3 over 1. Our intercept is going to be this plus 1. Intercept, we should count from 0 and come up 1. Negative 3 over 1. So we're down 3 from this point that we just made. 1, 2, 3. And then write 1. We have our 2 points, so we can graph our line going between them. All right, well, the practice problem. If you have any questions through the chat, please. go a little bit more time with this one? The explanation. So again, we're going to start with the equation. 3x plus equals 4. We want them by itself, so we're going to add 3x to both sides. Close enough. So leave us at 4y equals 3x plus 4. Everything by 4, we should get that y itself. That was at y equals 3, 4, x. 4 is just 1. Cutting it down to our slope-intercept form, where y is completely by itself. Our is going to be 3 over 4. Our y-intercept would be 1. So our y-intercept, start from 0 and count up 1, put in a point. And we're going to use our slope of 3/4. So that means we're going to go up 3, 1, 3, and run to the right 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We fill the line. It should be about right. There we go. We've got that pad. All right. The problem for the night, we've got problem number 7 here. There we go. Write the equation of the line given its slope and y-intercept. Really, as long as they don't really specify, we're just writing our line in slope-intercept form. And life is a cakewalk right now because we've got y equals mx plus b. And give us our b, so we can just fill that in as y equals our 3 or 5 plus 3. We're there. Nice and easy. I'll go up the practice problem unless anybody has any questions. Just fire away in chat. I'll give you a minute or two to work on this, and I'll come back. So again, we're going to do the same thing we just did here. Does anybody have any questions? Can I explanation here? All right. Y equals mx plus b. y equals e. That's our m, so y equals as our slope, -2/3. Plus b is going to be plus and -3, so we're just going to write that as a -3. Any questions? Conclude tonight's session. Come back on Wednesday for some fresh questions, and voice with Mel helping us out. Any questions, feel free to fire them away in chat box, but otherwise have a great night.